It started as nothing more than a quick stop for gas, just a routine errand on a warm evening. But in the span of a few minutes, that ordinary moment twisted into something far darker. A black woman stepped out of her car, unaware that eyes were already on her. A patrol vehicle rolled in behind her, slow and deliberate, as if she had done something wrong simply by existing. Before she could even process what was happening, an officer stormed toward her, grabbed her, and tore her dress in his frenzy to assert control. The humiliation hit her before the pain did, but what he didn't know was that this woman wasn't who he assumed. And the moment he learned the truth would flip everything upside down. Wait a second, let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more powerful and inspiring stories just like this one. Her name was Dr. Nia Carter, a 38-year-old trauma surgeon known for her calm under pressure and unshakable strength. She had saved more lives than she could count, spending long nights in operating rooms, fighting to give strangers a chance at tomorrow. Outside the hospital, though, she lived quietly. She preferred peaceful evenings, long drives with music humming softly, and late-night stops to refill her gas tank before heading home to her small townhouse on the edge of the city. That evening had been like any other. She had just finished a grueling 14-hour shift, still in her simple summer dress, planning to shower and collapse into bed the moment she got home. As she pulled into the gas station, she felt the relief of knowing she was minutes away from rest. The station was nearly empty, just a cashier inside and a couple of cars passing by on the main road. Nia stepped out, stretching her shoulders as she removed the gas nozzle. Nothing felt unusual. Nothing felt dangerous, but across the street, a patrol car slowed to a stop. The officer inside watched her in a way she had seen before, an assessing, dismissive look that carried its own quiet judgment. She didn't notice at first. She was too tired, too ready to go home, but that passing glance was enough. Because that officer didn't slow down out of caution or curiosity, he had already decided something about her. And she had no idea the storm that was about to unfold the moment. Nia placed the nozzle back into the pump. The patrol car pulled into the station. Tires screeched slightly. Not enough to draw significant attention, but enough for her heart to skip a beat. The officer stepped out, tall and rigid, with the kind of swagger that came from knowing no one would question him. He didn't ask if she needed help. He didn't greet her. He approached as if she had already committed a crime. Nia stood still, confused but composed. She could feel her exhaustion melting into unease, the kind that settles in your chest before your mind even understands the threat. The officer's steps were quick and determined, as if he were running toward a suspect. He reached out, grabbing her by the arm, so aggressively that her body jerked forward. The fabric of her dress caught beneath his fingers, tearing down the side. A loud rip echoed in the quiet evening air. She gasped, not from pain, but from shock, indignity, and the sheer disbelief that this was happening at a gas station in full view of the world. The officer towered over her, breathing heavy, as if he had sprinted and caught someone trying to flee. Demanded she stay still, though she hadn't even moved. His grip tightened, and Nia felt an unfamiliar mix of anger and humiliation flooding her veins. She tried to step back to regain balance, but he yanked her, again making the tear widen and exposing more of her skin inside the cashier booth. The young employee froze, unsure of whether calling someone would help or make it worse. Cars passing by slowed down, some stopping briefly before speeding away. Nobody wanted to interfere. Nobody wanted to become the next target. Nia pleaded for him to loosen his grip, her voice trembling with disbelief. But the officer only grew more forceful. He insisted she matched the description of a shoplifting suspect. However, he had no evidence, no real reason, and certainly no justification for his violence. He hadn't asked her name. He hadn't asked for ID. He had seen a black woman alone and acted on that alone. Her mind raced. She was a doctor, a respected professional, someone who spent her life saving people, including police officers. Yet here she was treated like a criminal without a shred of reason. Her torn dress fluttered in the warm breeze, a humiliating reminder of what power unchecked could do. And as the officer reached toward his cuffs, Nia realized something chilling. She fully intended to arrest her without cause, without hesitation. and without fear of consequences, but those consequences were coming and they would be far bigger than he ever expected just. As the officer reached for his handcuffs, a black SUV pulled into the station with blinding speed. The doors flew open and two suited individuals stepped out, moving with purpose. The officer paused, confused, still gripping Nia's arm tightly. A third figure emerged next. Someone the officer recognized instantly. The city's police chief? His face shifted from confusion to horror the moment he saw Nia, her torn dress, and the officer's hand still wrapped around her arm. He barked a single command, and the officer released her as if her skin had burned him. But the damage was already done. The rip in her dress, the red marks blooming across her arm, the humiliation that couldn't be undone, the chief's expression said everything: fear, disbelief, and a dawning realization that the officer had just assaulted the wrong person because Dr. Nia Carter wasn't just respected in the medical world. She had spent years working with the city's emergency response teams, including the police department. She was known. She was valued. She had saved officers' lives. She was the sister of the city's deputy mayor. Officer's face drained of color as the weight of what had done hit him. One reckless act, one racist assumption, one violent moment driven by nothing but prejudice, and now the world was watching. Chief turned to Nia, apologizing with a quiet urgency, but the damage had already taken root. She stood, shaking, not from fear, but from the violation of being reduced to something smaller, something lesser, simply because of the color of her skin. The days that followed the incident exploded across the city. Security footage from the gas station surfaced, showing the officer storming toward her with unjustified aggression. The torn dress, the violent grip, the sheer lack of reason, the humiliation she endured. The community reacted with outraged. Protests formed outside the station and the precinct. People demanded accountability, demanded more than apologies, demanded fundamental change. This wasn't just about Nia. It was about a system that allowed moments like this to happen again and again. And affairs launched an investigation, and within a week, the officer was suspended and had his badge stripped pending review. Politicians stepped in. Community leaders spoke out. And Nia, despite her pain, used her voice to push for reform: mandatory BIAS, training, accountability procedures, and protective protocols for civilians. She didn't want revenge. She wanted change. Late one evening, after the noise had settled for the day, Nia stood alone in her home. She looked at the dress, still torn, still carrying the memory of that night. It represented not just her experience, but the countless moments lived by others whose stories never reached the public, whose pain was never validated, whose dignity was stripped away without consequence. Nia didn't choose to become a symbol, but she became one anyway. Her story echoed in conversations across the city and beyond. People shared their own experiences, their fears, their exhaustion from constantly having to justify their existence. And as Nia listened, she realized her incident was not an isolated one. It was part of a pattern stitched into the fabric of society. Her voice, calm but unwavering, became part of a movement, one that asked a question. The world could no longer ignore. How many more times must a Black person be stripped of dignity before the world truly listens? And to everyone watching her story unfold, she asked, which country and city are you watching from? Take care.